Hey cruisers, happy Sunday. I wanted to come on today and share a story, an incident that occurred on one of my sailings. And if you've sailed long enough, you've seen and heard things, especially on those 3 and 4-day cruises. I believe they're regarded as booze cruise. People are wanting to get away for the weekend and have a good time and just leave all their responsibilities and just take a break. So there's a lot of drinking that goes on. And so on this particular sailing, I had gotten up early, as I usually do, to go find my coffee, and it was about 4:30 in the morning, so it was pretty early. And I went up to the Lido deck, got my coffee, went out on the deck, and was sitting there scrolling on my phone and drinking my yummy coffee. And out came a man who had been drinking, and a crew member was coming out behind him. She was coming out to clean, and as they're walking towards the chairs, he's asking her where she's from and just chit-chatting a little bit. And then he came and he sat down, and he had asked her, do you ever feel like jumping overboard while you're working? And she just giggled and she said no. She didn't know if he was messing with her. And he went on to say, well, he was going to jump. And she just kind of like giggled a little, wasn't quite sure, is he just messing around? What's he doing? And she said, you really shouldn't say that. And he said, no, I'm going to jump. And then she looked over at me, and I just shook my head no, like, this isn't good. And I can't remember what else was being said, but she was making her way over towards me while she was cleaning, and she said to me quietly, can you keep an eye on him while I go get security? And I said, yeah. And so she went on in, and as soon as she went in, he got up and he walked over to the railing at the deck, and he was looking over, and then he started walking towards the aft of the ship, and we were pretty far forward, and we were on the starboard side. And so he's walking along the railing and stopping and looking over, and then he starts walking again, goes a little bit further and stops and looks over, and he got a little ways away from me, and 30 feet or so, maybe 50 feet, and I thought, well, maybe I should get up and follow him in case I need to throw him a life ring. And wasn't sure if that would even help in the event that he may have jumped over. And so he just kept walking and stopping and looking, kept walking. I don't even think he realized I was following him. And not long after, a security guard came out with the girl, and he came up to me and he asked me, so what's going on? And I said, well, I'm not sure, but he might be serious. He keeps walking along this railing and stopping and looking, and so I'm not sure. And so the security guard went on ahead and caught up with the man and started talking with him. And I was going back to my chair, and the gal came up to me, and I asked her what her name was and how old she was, because she was very young, just 23 years old. And I told her I thought she handled the situation really well. And she said to me that they had some training, because on the last ship that she was assigned to, someone actually did go overboard, and so they had received some training. And she said she was glad that I had been there, because it would have been her word against a passenger's word, and that wouldn't have been very good. Well, she went back on in, and I went back to my chair, and I was watching the security guard and this man was fussing a little bit and wanted to be left alone. Another security guard came out, and they decided just to follow him. They weren't engaging with him or anything, just following him. And he'd go in, they'd follow him. He'd come out, they'd follow him. And this went on back and forth for about 40 minutes. And he was getting pretty upset and angry because he didn't want to be followed. And they were telling him that he needed to go back to his cabin. And they were going to escort him back to his cabin. And he didn't want any part of that. But finally, they just said, this is the way it is. And they got him back to his cabin, as far as I know. A little while, security come out, and they had me fill out a report of what I saw happen, and they had this young gal fill out a report too. And I wasn't quite sure what had happened to him, this man, until the next morning when we got into port and they had taken him off the ship. And these cruise lines, they're not going to mess around with this kind of stuff, and they've got to keep people safe. And in this particular incident, I don't know what this man was going to do, but in the event that he was seriously going to consider jumping, intervention, and maybe just God was taking care of him that day, and I hope he's doing well. But security, the security on these cruise lines, they have to deal with some very difficult situations, and anywheres from people getting sick, and they're taking care of that, fights, taking people down to sick bay, especially if they've had too much to drink and they're dehydrated. I saw, it was probably 1:30 in the morning, I saw security around a large group of young people, and they were out past their curfew, and they weren't 21, so they were getting them all back to their cabins. And they take care of situations, and they're on it. So on another cruise that I was on, unfortunately for this family, we had come into port, and they were going out on an excursion, and the dad, he didn't want to go, and he wasn't that old. He was in his 50s. And so they had gone out for the day on their excursion, and they came back, and unfortunately he had passed away. And the cruise line handled that situation so well. They were very discreet, and it didn't affect other people's cruise that day. There were people there that may have not even known what had happened. And I knew what happened because when I came back on the ship, I was on the first deck. And when you get off the ship, you're on 0. And I've got a dog here making noise. So I thought, well, instead of waiting for these elevators, I'm just going to go up the stairs to the next deck. And when I got up there, they had it all blocked off. And then I learned what had happened. So it's unfortunate that things happen, and nobody plans for it or anticipates it. But the cruise line, they're prepared and they do a fantastic job. So I wanted to share this with you, that even though you're on vacation mode, keep your eyes open, pay attention to what's going on around you, and especially the elderly. You know, you see a lot of them in their scooters or walkers, and they're waiting at the elevators to get on, and all of a sudden a whole flood of people go in ahead of them, and sometimes they get knocked around a little bit, not on purpose or anything like that, but just keep an eye out for the people around you, and pay attention, have a good time, be safe. So this is Kathy, the Gallivanting Cruiser, wishing you happy sails, and choose fun, and be safe.